My husband took our only family car to go on a lavish vacation with his mistress, leaving me and our daughter stranded and broke. I was devastated. But my quiet 10-year-old daughter just looked at me and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I know where the spare key is." Days later, he called me from a resort in Mexico, crying and begging for help after we stole the car right back from him. Before we get into it, I'd love to know, what city are you watching from today? And be sure to subscribe for more stories every day. Okay, let's go back to the morning he left. The morning my world ended, it started like any other. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, the coffee was brewing, and my husband, Brian, was humming cheerfully as he packed a large cooler with beer and sandwiches. It was the first day of his annual boys' fishing trip, a week-long excursion to a remote lake that he always said was his one chance a year to recharge his batteries. I played the part of the dutiful, loving wife, as I always did. I made him his favorite sandwiches, I found his lucky fishing hat, I reminded him to pack sunscreen. "Are you sure you have everything?" I asked, wrapping my arms around him. "I have everything I need," he said, kissing the top of my head. "Don't worry about me, just enjoy the quiet week with Stella. I'll call you when I get there." Our 10-year-old daughter, Stella, was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, watching us. She was a quiet, observant child, and she had a strange, unreadable expression on her face. Brian noticed her and grinned. "Gonna miss me, kiddo?" he asked, ruffling her hair. Stella didn't answer. She just watched him with her big, serious eyes. "Be good for your mom," he said, his good mood undeterred. He then grabbed his bags in the cooler, gave me one last quick kiss, and walked out the door. I watched from the window as he loaded his gear into our family minivan, the reliable, comfortable, and only car we owned, and drove away, waving cheerfully as he disappeared down the street. I felt a small, familiar pang of loneliness, but also a sense of peace. A quiet week, just me and my girl. The first crack in my perfect domestic world appeared the next morning. I sat down at my computer to pay a few bills, and I logged into our joint bank account, the one where we kept all our savings, our daughter's college fund. It was empty. Every single penny, over $60,000, was gone. A single massive wire transfer had been made the day before to an account I didn't recognize. I stared at the zero balance, a wave of nausea so intense it made the room spin. A mistake, I thought. A bank error. Or we've been hacked. The idea that Brian had anything to do with it was so monstrous, so unthinkable, that my mind refused to even consider it. I was about to call the bank's fraud department when my phone rang. It was my best friend, Jessica. Her voice was strange, hesitant. "Amanda, I really hate to be the one to do this, but I thought you needed to know." "Know what?" I asked, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs. "You know that young assistant from Brian's office, Chloe? The one he always said was like a daughter to him?" she asked. I nodded silently. "Well, she has a private Instagram account, but my cousin is friends with her and just sent me a screenshot. Amanda, it's a picture of them and Brian. They're on a beach and they're kissing. The caption says, 'Finally, our new life begins.'" The world tilted. "No," I whispered. "No, he's on a fishing trip." "There's more," Jessica said, her voice now full of a sad, quiet pity. "In the background of the picture, in the hotel parking lot behind them, Amanda, I'm so sorry. It's your minivan." After I hung up, I don't know how long I sat there, just staring at the empty bank account on my computer screen. The pieces of the betrayal, so ugly and so brutal, slammed together in my mind. There was no fishing trip. There was no bank error. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted for 12 years, had drained our life savings, taken our only family car, and had run away to Mexico with another woman, leaving me and our daughter completely, utterly, and financially stranded. I put my head in my hands and I began to sob. A storm of heartbroken, terrified tears for the life that was now over. I had no money, no car, and no idea what I was going to do next. It was in the depths of my despair that I felt a small, steady hand on my shoulder. I looked up and saw my daughter, Stella, standing beside me. Her face was not full of fear or sadness. Her expression was one of a strange and deeply unsettling calm. She looked at my tear-streaked face, at the empty bank account on the laptop screen. "Don't worry, Mom," she said, her voice quiet, but with an edge of steel I had never heard before. "I can get our car back." I looked at my 10-year-old daughter's face, at her strange, calm, and almost calculating expression, and a new kind of chill, one that had nothing to do with my husband's betrayal, went down my spine. I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't know how we could possibly get our car back from 1,000 miles away in another country. But as I looked into her serious, intelligent eyes, I realized this wasn't just a child's fantasy. My daughter had a plan. I stared at my 10-year-old daughter, at her small, serious face, and the words she had just spoken seemed to echo in the quiet, grief-stricken kitchen. "Don't worry, Mom. I can get our car back." My mind, a shattered wreck of betrayal and panic, struggled to comprehend her meaning. My first thought was one of pure maternal terror. What was she talking about? Had she, in a fit of childish anger, done something reckless? Had she put herself in some kind of danger? "Stella, honey," I began, my voice a trembling, frantic whisper as I knelt down in front of her. I took her small shoulders in my hands. "What are you talking about? What did you do? The car is in Mexico. It's 1,000 miles away. We can't get it back. It's gone." She did not look scared. She did not look like a child who was making things up. She looked at me with an expression of such calm, preternatal confidence that it sent a second, different kind of chill down my spine. This was not the little girl who still sometimes crawled into my bed after a nightmare. This was someone else, someone I had never met before. "He thinks it's gone. But he's not very smart, Mom. He's careless. I've been watching him for a long time." "Watching him?" I whispered, my own mind reeling. "What do you mean?" "I listen," she said simply. "You and Dad think I'm always just playing on my tablet with my headphones on, but I listen. I heard his phone calls at night, in the garage, when he thought I was asleep. I heard him whispering to a woman. I heard him talking about Cancun. I knew he was lying about the fishing trip for weeks." I stared at her, my heart breaking all over again. She had been carrying this secret, this burden all by herself, trying to protect me. "But how can we get the car back?" I asked, my voice full of the helplessness I felt. Because she said, a small, cold, and deeply satisfying smile on her face. "He forgot about the two secrets we know, the secrets he doesn't know we know." She then walked over to my messy desk in the corner of the kitchen. She picked up my keychain, the one with the little white plastic square tile attached to it. "Secret number 1, she said, holding up the GPS tracker. "Remember last year when you were worried about the car getting stolen from that big parking garage downtown? You bought this, and you had Uncle David hide it for you, deep inside the dashboard on the passenger side, so Dad wouldn't know and get mad about you wasting money." My God, I had completely and totally forgotten. In the chaos of the last year, that small act of paranoia had been completely erased from my mind. It was a cheap $20 GPS tracker, but in that moment, it was the most valuable thing in the world. "And secret number 2, Stella continued, her voice full of a simple, brilliant logic. She walked to the back door and pointed out the window, towards the empty space in our driveway where the minivan used to be. "Remember last summer when Dad locked his keys in the car at the lake and he had to call a locksmith? He was so embarrassed, and the next day he showed me where he hid the spare key, in a little black magnetic box tucked way up high on the frame, right above the back left tire." She looked at me, her eyes glittering with a fierce, almost terrifying intelligence. He made me promise never to tell you so you wouldn't think he was being irresponsible. I promised. But, she gave a small shrug, I don't think promises to a liar count anymore. I stared at her, at my quiet, bookish 10-year-old daughter, and I felt a wave of emotions so powerful it almost knocked me over. First, a profound, dizzying shock at her cunning, at her incredible memory. Then, a surge of fierce, protective, and overwhelming pride. She was a genius, a tiny, brilliant, and utterly ruthless strategist. The heartbreak, the despair, the feeling of helpless victimization that had been crushing me just moments before began to recede, replaced by a new, dangerous, and exhilarating feeling. Hope. We were not helpless. We had a plan. We had a weapon. We had two. I realized, with a jolt that was both humbling and awe-inspiring, that while I had been playing the part of the trusting, naive wife, my 10-year-old daughter had been the one who had seen the truth, who had had the courage to face it, and who had quietly, brilliantly armed us for the war that was to come. I pulled her into a hug, a real one this time, full of a new, profound respect. Stella, I whispered into her hair, you are the most incredible person I have ever known. She just hugged me back tightly. When we pulled away, I was no longer crying. My mind was clear, my hands were steady. So, I asked my daughter, my new partner in crime, my general, what's our next move? Stella looked up at me, her expression a perfect picture of calm, controlled, and righteous fury. Now, she said, her voice full of a quiet, chilling confidence that made my own heart sing with a terrible, beautiful joy. We call Uncle David and we tell him it's time to go on a little fishing trip of his own. I stared at my 10-year-old daughter, this quiet, bookish child who had just laid out a plan of action with the cool, calm precision of a seasoned general. The shock of my husband's betrayal was still a raw, gaping wound in my soul, but for the first time since I'd seen that zero balance in my bank account, it was no longer the only thing I could feel. Beneath the grief, a new, unfamiliar, and incredibly powerful feeling was taking root, a cold, righteous, and exhilarating fury. My daughter hadn't just given me a plan, she had given me a weapon, and I was going to use it. You are a genius, I whispered to her, my voice full of a new, profound awe. I pulled her into another hug, this one not of a mother comforting a child, but of two co-conspirators, two partners sealing a pact. An absolute, undeniable genius. I took a deep breath, my mind now clear and sharp. I knew exactly who to call. My brother, David. He was my opposite in every way. Loud, reckless, a man who had made and lost 3 small fortunes before the age of 40. But he was fiercely, unflinchingly loyal, and he loved me and Stella with a protective ferocity that I knew would be a formidable force when unleashed. I dialed his number. He answered on the second ring, his voice a cheerful, booming baritone. "Mandy, what's up, sis? Don't tell me you miss me already." The story tumbled out of me then, a frantic, tearful, and rage-fueled torrent. I told him everything. The fishing trip, the woman at the airport, the empty bank account, the sale of our only car. My apologies. The car was not sold. It was taken. Let me correct the narrative. The taking of our only car. The cheerful voice on the other end of the line was replaced by a low, dangerous growl. That son of a... he began. A string of curses that followed that turned the air blue. Where is he, Amanda? So help me God, you give me a name and a location, and I will be on the next flight. That's the thing, David, I said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my own face as I looked at my daughter. We know exactly where he is, and we have a plan. Stella, I said, my voice full of a pride I couldn't contain, has a plan.
I explained my 10-year-old's brilliant two-part counter-espionage mission, the hidden GPS tracker in the van, the secret spare key she had secured. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the phone, and then my brother let out a roar of pure, unadulterated, and admiring laughter. "That's my niece," he bellowed. "A little warrior. Okay, I'm in. Tell General Stella I'm awaiting my orders." For the next hour, the four of us, me, my daughter, my brother on speakerphone, and his best friend, a former Marine he had called on a three-way line, planned the operation. It was a mission of beautiful, righteous thievery. The logistics were simple. David would take the first flight in the morning to San Diego. His friend, Rick, who lives there, would pick him up. They would rent an unassuming car, drive across the border to Cancun, and check into a cheap motel. Under the cover of darkness, they would go to the luxury resort that the GPS tracker was pinging from. They would locate our minivan in the hotel parking lot, and then David would use the spare key my daughter had so brilliantly secured to simply take it back. "But we're not just taking the van," David had added, his voice a low, gleeful growl. "The idiot probably left his passport and the rest of the cash in the glove box. We're taking that too. We're going to leave him stranded, broke, and undocumented in a foreign country. Let's see how his new girlfriend likes him then." The next 24 hours were the most tense of my entire life. Stella and I were the mission's command center. We sat huddled together on the sofa in our living room, my phone in my hand, watching the world of our small secret war play out on a digital map. We watched the small, pulsing blue dot of the GPS tracker stationary and smug at the Playa del Sol all-inclusive resort and spa. We tracked my brother's flight as it crossed the country to San Diego. He sent us updates, short, concise texts like a soldier in the field. Landed, meeting Rick. Across the border, no problems. Heading south to Cancun, ETA 3 hours.
Stella was a rock. She was calm and focused, her eyes glued to the screen. She was the one who kept me from falling apart, her quiet strength a constant, steadying presence. Finally, late that night, the final text came through. It was from David. "We're here, at the resort. The dot is in the main guest parking lot. We have a visual on the minivan. It's parked right near the front entrance. The lights are out in their suite. Looks like they're asleep. We're going in. Going dark now. I'll call you when we're across the border." And then, silence. I looked at the phone screen, at the two dots on the map separated by thousands of miles of darkness. One was my treacherous, sleeping husband, comfortable in his luxury hotel bed, his crime, he thought, complete. The other was my loyal, reckless brother, a ghost in the warm Mexican night, about to steal back the only real asset my daughter and I had left in the world. The trap, so brilliantly set by a 10-year-old girl, was about to be sprung. All we could do now was sit in the darkness of our own living room, a world away, and wait to hear the sound. The hours that followed my brother David's final text were the most agonizing of my life. My 10-year-old daughter, Stella, and I sat huddled together on the living room sofa, a single blanket wrapped around our shoulders, our faces illuminated by the eerie blue glow of my phone screen. We didn't speak. We just watched. The map of Cancun was open, a silent, digital battlefield. We watched the small, pulsing blue dot of the GPS tracker, stationary and unsuspecting, in the parking lot of the Playa del Sol all-inclusive resort and spa. It was a symbol of my husband Brian's arrogance, his confident belief that he had gotten away with it all. Every creak of the old house made me jump. Every passing headlight on the street sent a jolt of irrational fear through me. My mind was a whirlwind of worst-case scenarios. What if they got caught? What if there was a confrontation? What if Brian woke up? I was terrified for my brother's safety, but beneath the fear was a fierce, burning, and undeniable desire for justice, for revenge. Stella, my little general, was a rock. She was not afraid.
She just watched the screen with a look of cold, focused concentration, her small face a mask of grim determination. She was the one who would point out small details, her voice a quiet whisper in the dark room. "Look, Mom, there's a service road behind the main lot. That's the best way out. Uncle David will see that." At 3:17 a.m., after nearly 2 hours of a silence so complete it was a physical presence, it happened. The blue dot on the screen, the one that represented my husband's entire stolen world, began to move. It moved slowly at first, a cautious crawl out of the parking space. Then, it navigated the winding paths of the resort's massive parking lot. It reached the service road. It turned onto the main highway, heading north. And then it began to pick up speed. A sob of pure, unadulterated relief tore from my chest. Stella didn't cry. She just squeezed my hand, a single firm gesture of victory. "He did it, Mom," she whispered, a small, triumphant smile on her face. "Uncle David did it." The phone rang 20 minutes later. It was my brother. I snatched it up, my hands trembling. "David, are you okay?"
Better than okay, Mandy. His voice was a triumphant, adrenaline-fueled roar on the other end of the line. It was almost too easy. The little genius was right about everything. He gave me a breathless, blow-by-blow account of their perfect heist. They had found the van, parked arrogantly right near the front entrance under a bright light. His friend had kept watch while David had crouched down, reached under the bumper, and popped the magnetic spare key box right off, just as Stella had described. "We opened the glove box," he said, a gleeful laugh in his voice, "and jackpot, his passport, a fat envelope with what looks like at least $5,000 in cash. And, get this, the airline tickets for his little girlfriend." He chuckled again. "We took it all, Mandy. We were in and out in less than 5 minutes. We're already 100 miles north. We'll be across the border and back in the U.S. by sunrise. He is officially and completely screwed." I was crying again, but these were tears of a different kind. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of a fierce, profound love for my reckless, wonderful brother and for my brilliant, terrifying daughter. The next morning, the real celebration began. Stella and I made a huge breakfast of pancakes and bacon. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window. The world felt bright and full of a new, dangerous, and wonderful hope. And then, at precisely 9:15 a.m., my phone rang again. It was an unknown number, with a country code for Mexico. This was it, the moment of truth. I looked at Stella and gave her a small conspiratorial wink. I answered and put the phone on speaker. A frantic, sputtering, and utterly panicked voice screamed from the other end of the line. "Amanda! Oh my God, Amanda, you have to help me! Someone stole the van! It's gone!" It was Brian. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. "The van?" I asked, my voice a perfect imitation of sleepy confusion. "Brian, what are you talking about? I thought you were at a lake in the mountains." I was," he lied, his voice cracking with the strain. We decided to drive down to Mexico for a day, for some deep-sea fishing. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, but the van is gone, and my wallet, my passport, all my cash was inside. I am stranded, Amanda. I have no money, no ID, and Chloe is with me?" He had, in his panic, admitted to the mistress. "Chloe?" I said, my voice full of a feigned, innocent surprise. "That's a funny name for a fishing buddy." "Listen, Brian," I said, my voice now losing its warmth, becoming as cold and as hard as a block of ice. "I'm afraid I can't help you." "What? What do you mean you can't help me? I'm your husband." "No, you're not. Not anymore. And I can't help you because, as you know, I have no money, because you stole it all, and I don't have a car to come and get you, because you took it." There was a stunned, sputtering silence on the other end of the line. What are you talking about?" he finally whispered. "And as for your passport," I said, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across my face, "I believe my daughter has a little surprise for you about that. Hold on, let me put her on." I handed the phone to Stella. She took it,
her small face a mask of calm, collected, and utterly devastating composure. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice as cold and as clear as a winter morning. "Did you lose something?"
The sound that came from the other end of the line was a howl of pure, incoherent rage. The sound of a man who had just realized he had been completely and totally outmaneuvered by his own 10-year-old child. I took the phone back from my daughter. "Brian," I said, my voice calm and final, as he continued to scream. "My brother left your passport and cash with a man named Carlos at a small bar in Tijuana. If you can make it there, it's yours. I'd suggest you start walking." I hung up the phone. We sat there in the quiet kitchen, the sound of my husband's distant, impotent screams still echoing in my mind. We had our car back, but our revenge wasn't complete. Now my husband, the man who had tried to strand me, had to make a 1,000-mile journey on foot through a country where he was now an illegal alien, and I was going to enjoy watching his progress. I hung up the phone on my husband's frantic, sputtering rage, and a profound, beautiful, and absolute silence descended upon our small kitchen. My 10-year-old daughter, Stella, looked up at me from across the table, a small, brilliantly satisfied smile on her face. In that moment, we were not a broken family. We were a victorious army of two. We had faced the greatest betrayal of our lives, not with tears, but with a quiet, cold, and perfectly executed strategy. The days that followed were a strange, surreal mixture of logistical cleanup and quiet, joyful liberation. My brother, David, arrived back from his fishing trip 2 days later. The prodigal minivan returned to its rightful place in our driveway. He handed me a thick envelope. Inside was my husband's passport, the remaining cash, and his mistress's plane tickets. "He's your problem now," David had said with a grin. Or, more accurately, he's Mexico's problem. The phone calls from Brian continued for another 48 hours. They were a pathetic, predictable cycle of emotions. First came the rage, the threats of lawsuits, the accusations that I was a crazy, vengeful monster. Then, when the rage didn't work, came the desperate, tearful pleading. He was broke. The resort had kicked him and his girlfriend out of their luxury suite. They were stuck, with no money and no way to get home. He loved me, he had made a terrible mistake, he would do anything to fix it. I listened to one of these voicemails with Stella sitting beside me. When it was over, she just looked at me, her expression one of quiet, simple wisdom. "He's not sorry he did it, Mom. He's just sorry he got caught." And with the simple, devastating truth of her words, the last lingering flicker of any feeling I had for the man I had married was extinguished. I blocked his number. I took the $60,000 he had stolen, which was now back in my bank account, and I didn't put it back into a joint savings account. I opened a new account in my name only. I hired the best divorce lawyer in the city. The divorce itself was a simple, uncontested affair. A man who has abandoned his family and committed financial fraud and is currently an undocumented, unemployed fugitive in a foreign country has very little legal standing. I sold the house, the one that was full of the ghosts of a life that had been a lie. Stella and I moved into a smaller, brighter apartment in a new neighborhood, a place that was entirely our own. We painted the walls her favorite color, a bright, cheerful yellow. We adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy, lovable mutt we named David, after my brave brother. Months later, I received a crumpled, tear-stained letter from Brian, sent from a cheap hostel in Mexico. He had finally found a way to contact the embassy. He was coming home. He begged me to see him, to talk. I agreed to meet him one last time, not for him, but for me. We met in a neutral, public coffee shop. The man who sat across from me was a stranger. He was thin and tan, and his eyes, which had once been so full of a confident, easy charm, were now haunted and empty. He told me a long, sad story of his own downfall.
His mistress had abandoned him the moment the money ran out. He had worked for months in a series of under-the-table, back-breaking jobs just to earn enough money to get a new passport and a bus ticket home. He was a broken man. "I was a fool, Amanda," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "I had everything: a beautiful wife, an incredible daughter, a perfect life, and I threw it all away for nothing." I listened to his confession, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just a quiet, profound sense of distance. He was a character from a book I had read a long, long time ago. "You're right," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You were a fool, but your biggest mistake wasn't the affair or the money. Your biggest mistake," I said, a slow, proud smile spreading across my face, "was underestimating your daughter." I stood up, leaving my coffee untouched. "Goodbye, Brian," I said, and I walked out, leaving him there in the wreckage of the life he had so carelessly destroyed. My story ends not with a grand, explosive moment of revenge, but with a quiet, beautiful, ordinary afternoon. It's a year later. I am sitting in our minivan, the one we stole back. But we are not in our old suburban town. We are on the open road. The windows down, the radio playing loud, happy songs, and beside me, in the passenger seat, is my daughter. My hero, my brilliant 10-year-old co-pilot, navigating our way to the Grand Canyon on the first day of our own, much-deserved and long-overdue vacation. Now I had this quiet, unshakable knowledge that the two of us, this small, powerful team of a mother and a daughter, could handle anything the world threw at us. He had tried to leave us stranded, but instead, he had just given us the keys to a brand new and infinitely more beautiful road. An absolutely incredible story of a brilliant daughter and a mother's quiet strength. What do you think of Stella's revenge plan? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were cheering for this amazing mother-daughter team, please show your support by hitting that like button and be sure to subscribe for more satisfying stories of karma and clever revenge. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.